Hey everyone, I'm Brian Parks, and in this video I want to talk about the different types of automation that you can have in a system like Cherwell Service Management. So I like to think about these in a little bit more abstract terms to describe the different types of functionality that you might want to expect out of a system that can automate your business or provide digital transformation for your business. That way you can kind of think about the different things that will happen to data and when they will occur, as opposed to thinking just specifically about implementation specific features in say a CSM or a Salesforce or something like that. So I like to break it down into 4 different categories. The first one is things that execute at a specific time. So these are, you can think of these kind of like scheduled tasks that only fire once. A reminder is a good example of this, right? An event on your calendar, something like that. Things that happen at a specific time, and once they happen, that's it. The next category is things that happen every so often or periodically. So these are, recurring meeting notifications, or a reminder that happens every morning to remind you to check your email or something like that. These are good examples of recurring automations. Things that happen with some schedule, every day, every week, every month, potentially once a year, but on some schedule. You define some schedule and then they run multiple times. The next type of automation is automation that runs when a particular change occurs. And this is more specific to the data that it's managing. So in the case of Cherwell, it might be when a particular field changes value from one value to another, or it might be when a record is created, when a record is deleted, those sorts of things. And the final category is after a specified amount of time. I think of these as very similar to the when category, when a particular change occurs, but there's some delay before the action actually takes place. So the actual trigger event might be a field changes value from one thing to another, but there's some delay, maybe 3 days later. In the case of an incident, it might be when the incident changes from in progress to pending customer response or something like that. It goes into this state, and then 3 days later, you might have a process that automatically closes it if you haven't heard from the customer. That's an example of an after scenario. And I describe these as with just the first word of each of these phrases. So at, every, when, and after. So that's kind of the abstract version. So let's actually get into Cherwell with a demo and talk about where you might find these in the actual CSM tool. So I'm going to switch over to the admin client here, because that's where all of this automation is configured. The first 2 types of automation, the at and the every so often case, are scheduled. So in the scheduler, you can go to the scheduling option down on the left side, edit schedule, and then you have different things that you can add here. So you can add something, and then the schedule can be one time or recurring. So one time is at a specific time, recurring is every so often. And obviously there are some different options that come with each of those. And then of course some action to perform, right? This is all in the category of automation, so you choose the action, right? The other 2 types of automation, the when a particular event occurs and after some delay, are what are called automation processes in Cherwell. So we'll go over to automation processes, and create a new automation process blueprint. That'll bring up a window that shows all of the automation processes that are currently defined in the system. And there are actually 3 different types of automation processes that are, they're not the types that I just described, the after a particular amount of time, or when a particular event occurs. Both types can handle, or sorry, all 3 types can handle both types of automation that I described, more or less. There's a little bit of configuration. It's more how you define the action that is to be performed. So if I click this new dropdown, the simplest one is the simple action event process. And this is basically one trigger, one thing that happens. So we have our business object type that we can choose, the event that happens. So in this case, it's things like created, changed, closed, reopened, something very simple, straightforward, and you can provide some other options, some limitations. And then one very specific action, either execute a one-step or execute an action, like this. The second type is actually kind of unique and isn't really, it doesn't fit into my model of the 4 different types of automation. The closest would be still when an event occurs, but there's a little bit of extra logic that would be involved. And that's threshold-based processes. So it's very similar to the simple action event, but instead of looking at when a record is created, when a particular record changes, it's when the number of records change, or something along those lines, or when the duration changes. So some computation is done automatically by the system, and when it hits a certain threshold, that's when this process fires. And then there are, obviously it fires a particular action in order to, in response to this particular condition. And then finally, we have the visual workflow process. And this is kind of the, all the bells and whistles, everything available to you. This is, it really do everything that all the other types can do, except threshold, I believe. I don't think you can implement a threshold-based automation process in this. But you basically have wait for time, which is kind of the after scenario. Wait for event, which is the when scenario. Or you can actually do a combination of both. So you can wait for time or event. And then if this event happens, it takes this path. If the time elapses, it takes this path. If the event occurs, this timer basically gets canceled out. If the time elapses, it won't even look for the event. It just ignores that. So one or the other paths will get taken. And here you have a lot more functionality available to you. You can still run a one-step like you could with the simple action event. You can run some of those other actions that were choosable in that other window. But you can also do a lot more complex behaviors, and you can actually chain multiple of these together. So you can do an action and run a one-step, or do multiple actions, or run multiple one-steps. There's a lot more flexibility in this window than was available in some of the other things. So that's basically the ways to implement all these different actions in Cherwell Service Management. So there are several different types of automation that we've discussed. We've talked about the more scheduled automations, at or every, and there are more data-driven automations, which are the when a particular condition occurs, or after a certain amount of time. So I hope you found this video helpful. It was kind of a combination of more philosophical and some demo in CSM. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and click that like button, give it a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe to the channel for more like this, and check out our other content, some deep dives into particular features in Cherwell, and some more abstract, conceptual as well. In the past few weeks, there's been kind of one of each, so go ahead and check that out. Check out our video history. If you want to see more like this and have ideas for specific topics or specific questions that you want answered on the channel, go ahead and leave a comment below or shoot me an email. There will be information, contact information for me and my company, Synapse Software, in the description box below. And I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.